Hello everyone, my name is Riley Wicker and this is my mock venture capitalist presentation for biochemical sensors. These slides will provide an overview of a series of devices that aim to provide diabetic patients with a new solution to prevent complications of hypoglycemia. We'll start out by talking about the issue that we're looking to solve by developing this device series. I'll then give a brief overview of some of the key features of the various devices, and I'll also outline how it's different than the products that are currently on the market. We'll then talk about the growing market potential for these types of devices and some other considerations that we'll need to focus on in order to successfully bring this device series to the market. So look at things such as our competitors, regulatory considerations, intellectual property rights. We'll finish out by talking about how I envision this product being used in the healthcare space and some of the business risks that we'll need to focus on as well. Type 1 diabetes is a metabolic disorder that affects the body's ability to properly regulate cellular glucose levels. In this disease, it is thought that the environment or genetic factors hinder or destroy the insulin-producing beta cells of the pancreas. Insulin is a major player in the regulation of cellular glucose, as it must be present and bind to the cell's insulin receptors in order to elicit translocation of glucose transporters and therefore an influx of glucose into the cell from the bloodstream. Without insulin, cellular glucose levels do not meet the energy demands, which can lead to harmful effects of hypoglycemia. Hypoglycemia can lead to complications such as diabetic ketoacidosis, seizures, or even death. Children are at even higher risk for developing complications due to their lower body mass. A study performed by the CDC in 2019 estimates that there are 1.8 million Americans living with type 1 diabetes, which includes 244,000 children. With our current treatment and monitoring solutions, it is estimated that half of these patients with type 1 diabetes will experience a serious complication of the disease at some point in their life. Additionally, as many as 66% of diabetics avoid initiating a blood glucose test when they know it's necessary just because of the painful and invasive nature of a finger stick. Acme Healthcare has licensed a technology that has the potential to significantly improve the quality of life of those living with type 1 diabetes. A recent study found that there are 7 metabolites that can be identified in expired breath that accurately predict hypoglycemia. These findings open up the possibility to develop a series of devices that provide point-of-care testing solution for those at risk of developing hypoglycemia. These devices do not require the patient to perform a painful finger stick or to wear a device that causes skin irritation. Our devices can accurately differentiate between metabolites generated during exercise and the metabolites that are generated during a true hypoglycemic event. All of our devices will utilize an engineered collection method that maximizes the uptake of alveolar gas while eliminating the uptake of mixed breath. We have put together a plan to develop a series of devices that are designed to provide a solution that matches the needs of the individual or the scenario. The bottom row of images are examples of what we picture these devices to look like. So starting from the bottom left, our initial device will be a simple, easy-to-use, reusable breathalyzer. The patient will simply blow into the device and will get results directly on the device or sent to the smartphone. The results will be simple and easy to interpret and will focus on identifying hypoglycemic events. This device will have interchangeable mouth tips, so that way it can be used in situations where there are multiple patients, such as in a clinic, at a school, or at a summer camp. The device pictured in the middle will be our bread and butter, so to speak. This is a minimally invasive sensor that is easily deployed into the nasal passageway. The device is designed to collapse during placement and removal and then will expand when the device is placed in the nasal passageway. The alveolar collection tip will divert expired air to a polymer-coated sensor that selectively reacts with the 7 metabolites that were discovered in the previously mentioned. When sufficient concentrations of these metabolites are present, indicating hypoglycemia, the reaction between the metabolites and the polymer substrate will create an electric potential, which will then be measured by the transducer on the distal tip of the device. A signal will then be sent out to the patient or provider's smartphone, prompting them to take appropriate action. Additional benefits of this device is that it doubles as treatment for patients that have obstructive sleep apnea. We're also aiming to develop a device that can last over 6 months. Our final device in this series will be a permanent implant that is placed directly into the airways of the lungs. This device will have leads similar to a pacemaker leads that connect it to a replaceable or an upgradable generator. The generator will have the ability to produce sounds that alert the patient of a hypoglycemic event. The generator will also carry emergency reserves of both glucose and insulin, which can be administered through an previously established intravenous access point. You might be asking yourself at this point, don't we already have devices that help diabetics monitor their blood glucose? Well, our products aim to offer those at risk of hypoglycemic events an additional solution that is more convenient, more cost-effective, and requires less maintenance. As I stated earlier, as many as 2/3 of diabetic patients avoid initiating a finger stick due to the painful or invasive nature. This technology will eliminate the need for a painful needle stick and will replace it with a harmless process of blowing into a breathalyzer or just through normal breathing. Continuous glucose monitors need to be changed about every 2 weeks, which is not very cost effective. Additionally, these devices are placed on the arm, which makes them easy to spot. The nasal stent sensor offers an alternative for those who do not want to advertise their medical condition. Another common solution is the use of diabetes alert dogs. Although dogs are man's best friend, they tend to not be very reliable. Additionally, the financial burden associated with taking care of an animal, in addition to the time spent on continued training for the animals, makes this solution unrealistic for most people with diabetes. Acme devices stand out because they don't require finger sticks. They offer a private solution for people that don't want to advertise their conditions. They are more accurate than traditional methods. They provide real-time alerts and are longer lasting, making them more cost-effective. A recent FDA study demonstrated the trends of increased adverse outcomes at slower rates than device recalls. This data highlights the importance of thoroughly analyzing the potential risks and adverse outcomes of implementing a new device. Although the non-invasive nature of the external breathalyzer model allows it to have a lower probability of directly causing harm to the patient, it still carries the risk of failing to successfully identify hypoglycemic events in a timely manner. This model relies on the patient to administer the test, opening the door to potential user error and improper collection techniques. Additionally, a patient that is asymptomatic might not realize that performing a test is necessary until after harm has come to the patient. With the more advanced models, continuous monitoring and alerts sent to the patient's smartphone will eliminate this risk, but at the cost of additional risk of infection or life-threatening complications caused by a dislodged device. The implantable device also carries intraoperative risks, such as adverse effects of anesthesia and risks of excessive bleeding during the implant. A significant area of concern for the nasal stent sensor is the inability of the patient to tolerate the initial side effects. A study performed on patient comfort of an obstructive sleep apnea nasal stent demonstrated that 32% of patients reported discomfort. This includes 12% of patients being completely unable to tolerate the device. Accurate results are critical for all devices, as false negatives will cause the patient to take no action, which will make them slip further into hypoglycemia, while false positives would cause the patient to take unnecessary action, such as inappropriate administration of insulin. In 2022, the type 1 diabetes market was valued at $7.59 billion and is expected to nearly double over the next 10 years to $13.64 billion. This projected increase in the market is likely due to continued trends of increased prevalence of Western diet, less active lifestyles, increased levels of toxins in our environment, and an increased acceptance and use of implantable and wearable devices. A separate report published by BBC estimated that in 2022 the continuous glucose monitor market could reach $20.7 billion, with a projected increase to $32.7 billion by the year 2027. The large difference in market potential between these two populations is due to the fact that the CGM market includes patients that are diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. Patients diagnosed with type 2 diabetes are much less likely to experience hypoglycemic events. For this reason, and since these devices alert patients of hyperglycemia, patients diagnosed with type 2 diabetes are more likely to choose a continuous glucose monitor. I chose to include this information because it highlights the additional revenue potential from tapping into the type 2 diabetes market, which we will talk about more on future slides. OrientaMed is aiming to release their hypoglycemic breathalyzer device by the end of 2023. This company is one of the first to produce such a device and has established patents specific to this device type, making them one of our main competitors. We will be keeping a close eye on the hurdles that they have to overcome, along with the successes and acceptance of their device rollout. Continuous glucose monitors are all the hype right now, and several companies have released devices. As CGM devices continue to improve, so will their longevity and cost effectiveness. The longest lasting CGMs on the market today can go up to 6 months without being replaced. These devices also provide the patient with additional blood glucose level information that is not currently possible to obtain with a simple hypoglycemic detection device. New medications have also received a lot of media attention recently. The blockbuster medication semaglutide, which is known by its brand names of Ozempic or in the higher concentration Wegovy, has shown promising effects in reducing the need for insulin in type 1 diabetes patients. With that being said, our products will work in conjunction with these medications as glucose monitoring is still indicated even with less need for insulin. The development of a medication that revives the insulin-producing beta cells of the pancreas has the potential to significantly overtake the type 1 diabetes market and is something to be on the watch for so that we can adjust our devices accordingly. The authors of the research article that our devices are based off of have already established patents related to this technology. These patents cover the methods for identifying and monitoring illnesses from gas samples. They cover devices that determine the level of concentration of an analyte in a person's breath, along with the wireless integration methods that integrate all of the data into one place. Additional patents that will affect our device rollout include a patent on the design for the collapsible airway stent. With that being said, our device is a non-obvious improvement to this device and gives us the potential to establish our own patent. Furthermore, incorporating a detection method for hyperglycemia that would allow us to tap into the type 2 diabetes market is likely already covered under the bottom patent for glucose analyzers. This patent protects the devices that are directly measuring glucose. Further research is needed to identify metabolites that are found in the patient's breath during hyperglycemic events. The ultimate goal is to produce a device that we can market directly to patients without the need of prescription. This level of easy access will empower patients by giving them a choice in their care. The niche market that will be highly targeted by our nasal device are patients that are diagnosed with both type 1 diabetes and obstructive sleep apnea. The nasal stent sensor offers these patients a minimally invasive, long-term, cost-effective solution for both of these ailments. Additionally, we will market our nasal stents to endocrinologists to prescribe as a tool for both type 1 and type 2 diabetes patients. Type 1 patients will benefit from continuous monitoring and additional protection against hypoglycemic events. We will encourage endocrinologists and other physicians to prescribe this device to patients that are newly diagnosed with type 2 diabetes as an additional protection against hypoglycemic events while they are adjusting to their new lifestyles and medications. Hospital systems will be able to use the breathalyzer device and nasal stent devices as easy, cost-effective screening tools in the emergency department and for admitted patients. It will also be encouraged to discharge patients with a nasal stent sensor in patients that are at increased risk for readmission due to future hypoglycemic events. This will provide patients with a monitoring solution that reduces adverse events between their hospital admission and their visit with an endocrinologist to develop a more detailed treatment plan. Due to the fact that all of our devices have the intent to prevent impairment of human health, they are automatically classified by the FDA as either Class 1 or Class 2 device. This means that a 501(k) pre-market notification is required prior to the release of these devices. OrientaMed has potentially allowed us to help streamline this process for our breathalyzer device, as it is a substantial equivalent. The FDA has stringent approval guidelines for implanted devices, and further clinical studies will be necessary to prove the accuracy and efficacy of our devices. We are aiming to obtain ISO quality and safety certifications before offering our products internationally. Obtaining this certification involves a process of putting together a documented plan for the procedures for training the providers that are using these devices. After this plan is successfully implemented, an internal audit will be necessary in order to receive an official certification. One of the biggest business risks that Acme Healthcare is facing today is the assumption that we will be able to successfully identify the reactions that are able to measure the identified metabolites in a way that is specific and sensitive enough to produce a high-quality device. Further research is necessary to address these concerns before moving forward with the nasal stent sensor development. With respect to regulatory considerations, 69% of the 501(k) applications are rejected on their first submission. Therefore, careful analysis of the safety of our devices is critical in order to get these devices on the market in a timely manner. Patient adherence and comfort with our nasal device is another potential business risk. Improvements to the design of the collapsible stent might be necessary in order to reduce the reporting of discomfort. Product liability is something to consider, and stringent quality measures will be implemented in order to ensure the consistency in the production of our devices. The diabetes market is highly crowded at this point in time, and careful monitoring of our competitors' actions will be necessary to ensure the development of a competitive product. Patents and trademarks will be implemented as possible to reduce these business risks.